my favorite words as sort of the odd jobs handy guy person from your father was um, okay. I guess we'll have to call the plumbers. That was always like, oh, thank you, because I cannot do this. So, so
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Tim, tell me about life today, what you're doing, and what gives you purpose.
yeah. So I'm teaching in the religion department at TCU, right? You may have heard of TCU, the Horned Frogs. The
Sure.
football team made it to the national championship some years ago.
Yep.
Wasn't the best showing at that point. Afterwards, 65-7, I think, is the numbers. Um, uh,
Don't worry.
but yeah, no, I've been here for this is actually my first year in the religion department. I was over in the divinity school or the school of theology for a while,
Okay.
but I decided to make the move. I just sort of wasn't feeling it as much, in that context, and had sort of had to take on some more administrative stuff over there, which again, that wasn't really giving me life. And so I moved over to teach undergraduates over here in the
Yeah.
religion department at TCU. And that's really been great. That's been sort of a kind of a rebirth of the teaching vocation. Really, really kind of like it a lot more than I was liking teaching. People who are preparing for ministry. Um, so that's been great, and just really what I love the work and love the you know the especially the research and writing stuff. I really like. Um, close to home. I have a little family. I didn't manage to get married until I was like 40, but
Nice.
ended up doing it. And my wife is from Guatemala, and we have a son, 16 years old, right? So it's a rising junior this year, and
Nice.
uh, so there's plenty to sort of keep us busy with him, and all so much more activity these days than when I was a kid. But
Yeah.
um, so I mean those things together, the family and the sort of the new work job. I mean they're both they're both pretty good. Nothing is perfect. Nothing is without struggles every now and then, right?
Yeah.
But those are the sort of the two bases in my life, right?
Yes.
Family and then
Steve,
the vocation, the teaching stuff.
yeah. Steve, when you room with Tim, you guys room together. Who were the other one? It was Jerry,
Jerry
Judd,
Judd.
and
Jerry Judd, yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
Matt
Jerry,
Brayton.
Matt Brayton.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
When you,
That was a good year.
it
That
sounds,
was
yeah.
that was a good mix of.
Uh,
I have a picture of me and Jerry doing sit-ups together, and
All right. Well,
I
Steve,
guess
when
we're
you,
probably having competition of some sort.
there you go. When you hear like what Tim's doing today, is that what you would have envisioned him doing, or some version of it, or not? Or I mean, just
well, he always seemed like a philosopher to me. So,
yeah.
so yeah, I can see that.
Also,
And I think, just as kind of talk about that West Coast vibe, but it was just kind of that
yeah,
thoughtful. And I think you were a history major when in
Yeah,
college we were knew each other anyway, kind of.
yeah. The
Um,
next year, once I started college, I became a
yeah.
history major. Yeah,
So I think that was the last time we were
Nice.
yeah,
kind of together. But yeah, it's
yeah.
kind of thing.
Because the second year, I can't remember. I got moved to the gatehouse with Bruce, right?
Yeah.
Bruce and I lived in the gate. Bruce, we lived in the gatehouse for a
So,
couple of years,
We're so
and
burned.
I can't remember what happened because those, as you said, Steve, they changed the housing arrangements down there or whatnot. So.
yeah, I ended up living up on top of the field house with Steve Bain that next year.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a little two
Steve.
person apartment up there.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Oh,
There
that's
you
cool.
go.
Steve Bain.
Yeah. I lived up there in the second half of the summer of '86 when I came
Okay.
back from Alaska with Keith Young, and
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Keith
yeah,
Young.
yep, that
Yeah,
was
I remember him.
it was a sauna up there, like just a little like glorified attic. But we had some good conversations. We had his brother Peter Young on a few weeks ago who wrote a book, and yeah, it's a whole other thing. But
Keith Young really was a philosopher, wasn't he? Wasn't it like his
yeah,
major philosophy or something? I kind of remember that.
Mm.
oh yeah, a quiet guy, but his words when he spoke, it was powerful. But no, that's good to hear. Like I don't know that Tom and I could have predicted where each other were going at the time, but
Yeah. Where are you? What are you doing?
Well, I'm here in
I mean,
Buffalo.
probably your regular viewers know this already, I'm sure.
Oh, the thousands of them. Yes.
We don't talk about work much, Don, do we?
Not really. No, you seem to everything we're doing. You do above and beyond your work, and Tom, you do so much more. Like I found out, Steve will attest to this, but when I did the office call the other night, my version of Zoom runs out after 40 minutes, not 40 minutes and 1 second. Like
Use this one, Don.
noted. I should.
Yeah.
I was telling people in the call, hey, just jump right back in the link, and I'll be right back in a second. I had no idea like how long it took for the recording.
Oh yeah, you have to wait for it to finish.
Yeah, so I'm getting texts and emails like, hey, we're back on, but it says the host is not here to admit us or whatever. Like, I realized, yeah, Tom does all that, and so, but everyone came back, so it was good. But
I'll answer for Don. He worked for the Buffalo Bills for 27 years.
Oh yeah, nice.
In their front office. So
I think I kind of heard that maybe somewhere over the decades. So
Yep, it was a good.
That's cool.
Career. Yep, got
like pretty good, pretty decent year this past year.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, a bunch of good years they strung together since I left. But
is there a relationship there?
Yeah, we have a good relationship. Actually, I was privileged enough to be invited to a retirement party for a former colleague last night, and I was really warmed by the people that are still there that reached out and, hey, we miss you. Hope you're doing well. That kind of thing.
Yeah, very cool.
But it was time. It was God's timing, and I could extrapolate from the day that it happened. I'm sure I called Tom shortly after, but we wouldn't probably be doing this if I was still there, because it would have been in what people thought was a great career, and it was. But in retrospect, I feel a lot of burnout from the things that I was asked to do, but the things that being let go from it allowed me to do, including the book idea with camp, and one about the Bills, and then the book idea led to so much more for me and my family that led to this podcast and reconnecting with you and Steve, but so many other people, and having time to put toward that has been really special. So
yeah, very cool. Very cool.
Steve, what do you do?
I'm an engineer down here, and I was in the Air Force for about 10 years after college, and then still been working in military technology. Down here, it's mostly missile defense stuff. Huntsville's a big missile, and NASA. Everybody's an engineer down here, so it's kind of a big engineering town.
Okay.
ROTC, right? You were in ROTC, right? Yeah,
That's right.
I remember that now.
Yeah, I think because that's right. That summer of '87, I got there late because I had my little my summer training.
Yeah.
For ROTC.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Very cool. Tim, I work for a company that's headquartered in the Bay Area.
Oh, really?
Have you heard of Kaiser Permanente?
Oh, yeah. Grew up going to Kaiser.
Yeah, that's who.
Oh, yeah. They were our doctors when I was a kid. So
I'm not a doctor.
Kaiser in South City. That's where we go. San Francisco.
Yeah, I work in the IT area.
Okay.
We're on big programs. So.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Kaiser's a great company. Okay, let's move on.
I got tons more memories, so you can ask anything.
All right, good.
Yeah, maybe let's just ask maybe one. I mean, I think I heard you say you're not really necessarily in touch with anybody, and which person you like to reconnect. Of course, that's Steve. So we've checked that one off the list. If you were to just say how camp has influenced your life, what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I would say those 3 summers were, some of the best summers of my life, really. And yeah, I get very sort of nostalgic about it, right? And some people don't like nostalgia, like you're living in the past or things like that. But I'm a little more positive on nostalgia, right? Because I mean, it was a sense of community and connectedness, right? That was there, right? You know, you had your community, you had your connectedness, you had kind of purpose, right? In the sense of, you know, we're a staff for the guests, right? And we have these jobs that we have to do, right? And we clearly weren't doing them, you know, for the money, right? uh, we're
Gospel
doing,
volunteers.
yeah,
There
we're
was a
doing
little
them.
money. Steve saw some money come through, but I'm sure it didn't really cover the expenses. And he had to drive it to the bank, and then it was gone.
It's like, I can't
Yeah,
believe
no, we
people
did it
pay this much
because,
to stay here.
you know, because it was kind of service, right? You know, it was related to, you know, kind of our religious commitments, our faith, right? Pretty much everyone on staff had that to an extent, right? There's like folks who are maybe a little more serious, more earnest, and others not. Uh, but I really just like the connectedness, and like I said, coming to preseason '86 was key. You know, just getting in that kind of group of folks who are a little older, like me, right? And you know, and just the way they received me into that, you know, into that group. They didn't have to do it that robustly, that generously, but they did. And you know, that was great. You know, and then once we're there, it just kind of, you know, just the hard work and the hard play, playing basketball. I mean, I was in the best shape of my life in those summers, right?
That's
Working all day
exactly
and then
right.
playing basketball in every other free moment. Um, and but just that connectedness, right? And I liked also the fact that, you know, that folks there, to my mind anyway, folks there were like pretty much everyone was taking their faith seriously to an extent, you know, some more than others, right? Um, uh, but I also felt like it was like you could find your place there, right? You
Yeah.
didn't there wasn't sort of, at least in those 3 summers, right, there wasn't like you have to be this kind of Christian and you have to do these sorts of things. It was like we're here together, right? And we sort of already acknowledged that this is important to us. We want to, you know, we want to serve and we want to learn and we want to be together and we want to have fun, right? And we want to do it in good ways, right? So
Well,
I just
so
really love that. That's the nostalgia. I just felt so connected those 3 summers, right? And just sort of that connection, it's hard to recapture, you know.
let me ask all three of you a follow-up question to what you just said, Tim. Is Camp of the Woods unique as far as being so accepting and yet it gives you freedom to explore your faith, to have a different, you know, commitment maybe than somebody else, and no pressure that everybody has to like march to the same music, right? I think it's unique. I don't, but maybe I just haven't experienced it. Is it unique in the last 38 years for you guys?
I would jump in and just say, since it's fresh from what Tim just said, that he's piggybacking on what Jeff Calliguire said last week about how camp provided that
Yeah.
atmosphere and opportunity. What Tim just did was, without maybe even knowing what he said, probably not, is to talk about how people of our age capitalized that and used it for that reason.
Yeah, I agree too. I think it was, yeah, it was an opportunity to explore your faith, and you know, even the having all these great speakers come in every week from different places around the world, and just learning different things from different people, and it was just a very unique experience to grow to grow in faith, I think, and
Yeah.
in an environment that was very, yeah, very open. It wasn't like, you know, funny. Yeah, it was not like a denominational camp.
Right.
It was
Yeah.
very open to exploring your faith.
So, I mean, for example, I remember a lot of conversations with Steve. You know, I mean, we talked, right, about faith, this, ideas, history, philosophy. You know, we talked a lot, right? Um, I didn't talk that way with everyone, but I talked that way with you and you know, some others, right? Um, and you know, that was just great, you know. But at the same time, for someone, you know, kind of like me, you know, I also remember, you know, especially in preseason, but Jimmy Olsen, you know, and you know, we're painting the cinder blocks with the classic rock playing, right? You know, and
Yeah.
Yep.
in certain Christian contexts, that would be a little, you know, a little iffy, right? But there was that kind of freedom to sort of
Yeah.
to express one's faith in a way that was a little more porous to that which isn't necessarily robustly Christian, like, Boston, or I still remember Jimmy Olsen. He had that big boom box, and he's the outfield, right? Josie
That was
Fox,
Earl.
Fox.
That was Earl. I played that outfield tape.
Earl
over
had the
and
outfield,
over and
yes.
over again.
Oh, was it Earl with the outfield tape? But I just remember that.
Over and over
I
and
thought, I
over.
thought
Yeah.
Dave was gonna kill him. I think.
And with the garbage truck, we always had the guys and the crew in the garbage truck. They always wanted, at least one of the summers, they always wanted Boston going.
Boston.
In the
Yeah,
garbage
yeah.
truck.
They made that comeback that year, right? The third stage album.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's wild. Steve, are you going to say it or am I? The Rolling Stones.
Oh, no. Well, that was good. Don has this memory of me with, for some reason, associates me with this Rolling Stones song, "Emotional Rescue" from our junior years. It's very sad for me to think that's how he.
Well, it just happened to come on when we were on the radio and we were doing our tennis ball thing, and so
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway.
I do have one regret that's sort of
Uh-oh.
related to classic rock, is that one I think it was that first summer, a group of folks were going to see Jackson Brown, and they invited me to go, and I don't know, for some reason I declined, so, and I never saw Jackson Brown.
Well, when they said go, they weren't talking about going up to downtown Speculator. It was an hour and a half to go to Saratoga, and
Yeah,
you'll
it was a little
probably
ways.
have to sacrifice 10 calls. Wait, where's Tim?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So,
Radio doesn't reach that far.
yeah, right. Where were you, man? So I hope you made up for it since.
Yeah, no, I never seen Jackson Brown, so.
That's a bummer.
Neither have I.
We're going to do what we call blast from the past here.
All right.
Did you mention doing sit-ups?
Yes, with Jerry Judd. That's us. Yeah, that's the picture I had, right? Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, wow.
You look pretty mean right there. Like,
man, look how young I am. My goodness. One of the reasons I'm wearing a hat too is to cover up sort of the less robust dark hair that I had then. It's not so much anymore. Yeah, no, that was that cabin. I remember it was a bit of a. I mean, it was home, and so I was grateful for it. But one could say it was, wasn't the Ritz, right?
No, but that was a Fieldhouse cabin, not Boys Park.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fieldhouse cabin. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't the Ritz, but it wasn't Boys Park either.
That's right.
I mean, look at that chair to the right there.
There
there's our basketball squad. Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
You and Steve take it around the horn, man. Just
Steve going
what
left.
What are we looking at here?
Nate and was it Bob?
Mike Ballman.
Mike Ballman. His father's Bob, right?
Yes, he ran the TP. Yep.
So Mike was a little younger than us, right, Steve?
He was a lot younger, but he was privileged to be part of your group there,
Okay, yeah, and then Steve, Earl, and Jay.
There you go.
Yeah, that was
fun. Tim filled that power forward position.
Yeah, that was a decent squad.
It was.
We did okay.
You guys were, you guys
were a good team right there.
You were. Yep, you had it all. Yep.
I can't remember. Did the boat boys have a basketball team, or?
We tried to put one together. It was tough because one of us always had to get the canteens from Tapawingo, so we were like, which one of you can't play? But we did. I think you guys got the best of us a few times, but it was still fun. But like you said, we were in the best shape of our lives. Like still to be able to play basketball like at that time of night after everything we did all day. It's just like those
just for hours.
Yeah, right.
Hours.
Yeah. And then go to the teepee and have chocolate ice cream and pizza at 11 when Mr. Bauman was closing down, and you'd be like,
"Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember that. That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, those are good memories. Yeah,
here we go.
I have this picture too. So, yeah, there's Mike, and then Amy, and Tom, and Lori.
That's my wife.
Yeah, that's the result of the far end of the car loan. So,
Yes. Yeah, she's grateful you let me borrow your car as well.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, 35 years.
Wow. So
Yeah,
you got married like during, were you
22.
on staff?
No, but I mean, 2 summers after.
Yeah. Oh,
Don, you
wow.
must
Yeah.
have
So like
hit 35
1990.
or 6 as well, right?
Wow. Yeah.
Don, you got married before I did, so you're at 35 or 6 now too.
89. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep, right there. So Steve, it's funny, again, just 2 nights ago we had a call with Amy and you and Rachel just about what happened behind that wall.
Yeah.
Yep.
And to the left was your office. Or well,
Yeah.
to the
I
right
remember.
in this picture, but to the left of them. You had the cage. You actually had like bars that
Yeah.
what
We
would
were
have to
talking.
happen? Yeah.
We were talking, Tim, about them calling you on the walkie-talkie with your old code numbers
Yeah.
for like
Code
different
8.
kind of issues.
Yep. And wasn't Bobby's office back there too?
I don't know where he was. I don't think he was upstairs. I don't think he was on
I
the
think it
first
was
Okay.
upstairs.
Up,
Yeah.
the same building, but upstairs, I think, right?
Okay. Yeah. Because
Yeah,
I kind of only
happy you
remember
are.
one time being back there. So, but
Yeah. Uh-oh.
that was again after that prank.
Yeah.
Nope, that's what happens.
Yeah.
All right. We actually have video, Tim.
Oh,
Little bit.
nice.
Little couple clips.
Just a little clip. Let's
Video
click.
from like 35 years. Wow, look
Okay.
at that. Oh my goodness, that is old video.
Electronic camp vehicles.
Oh, there's the garbage
Yeah,
truck.
there it is.
Oh my gosh, where'd you get that? Is that me?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's great. You know, it's weird. I love driving that garbage truck. I mean, that was kind of fun. So that big old long hydraulic tube, right? Oh wow, that's funny. I would love to have that video just as a,
Oh, well, I'll send it to you. But I watched this
just so I
two
can
times.
prove it to my kid.
Yeah, before before posting or sending it to Tom. If we really slow it down, I watched your lips and you said something about okay, Tom. So you mentioned his name, so it must have been Tom taking this probably from the Marine Jeep, but your truck was awesome and cool, but I don't know that it had an ability to do something in our Marine Jeep.
I remember your Marine Jeep, that old USPS
Yeah, so
Postal Service thing.
I think the next clip here, when the person that I'm sure Tom was driving and videoing at the same time and doing a third thing, using the special feature on the Jeep that we had to take the windshield wiper fluid thing and point it sideways and squirt.
It was like a little tube that stuck out and you could aim it. It's supposed to aim back at the windshield wiper.
Yeah.
You could turn it sideways and aim it at pedestrians.
Yeah, no, I remember you all doing that. I remember that.
So good.
But there you are.
There
Yeah,
it
no,
is.
that was a great. I love that garbage truck, and there's the big old dump truck too.
Yeah.
I remember one time, and years afterwards, I was only able to put this together, because, one of the young women on staff, right? At one point I was driving the big truck and the big dump truck, garbage truck, and they stop and we're talking. And she says, "Oh, where are you going?" "I'm going to the dump," and she says, "Can I go with you?" Right? And it was only years later, I was like, "Okay, you can come to the dump with me if you want." It was only years later that I thought, well, maybe you should have followed up on that, right? If a young woman wants to get in a garbage truck and go to the dump with you, right? Either she's really into heavy machinery or you might have a chance there. So, but I didn't figure that out till a few years afterwards. So I can't even remember who it was.
If she's willing to say, "I want to jump in the truck and go to the dump with you,"
Yeah,
it might have been about you.
yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, that's a great.
That's amazing.
I love the Odd Jobs handyman truck too. That old hot dog truck, that was great too.
I don't know.
Oh, is that the red vehicle I saw you in? Maybe was it red?
I sent a picture, Don, to you that.
Oh, you
in
did.
front of it. That's the only picture I had. You can barely see it.
But
My
there was
bad.
the Odd Jobs truck, right? It was like an old hot dog truck or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah,
You remember it, Steve, because I
Yeah.
parked it always in
parked it
front
right
of
in
the.
front by the basketball courts.
Yeah.
When you
Yeah.
say hot dog truck, do you mean it was a panel van?
No, I mean I think it was like it
It
wasn't a
was a
panel
weird.
van.
It was a van, but it was a weird looking. It looked like a hot dog. You're right.
It
Looked
was
like
like
a
a
hot
hot dog truck. So, and I think they used it for a while because it was there. It
Here we
was there
go.
the first year I was there, and I used it the 2 other years I was there. So
I don't know if this is Tom. I'm going to send it to you right now.
All right.
This is the other. Okay.
I remember I think I had one picture of like all the housekeepers were like posing around this hot dog truck because I worked pretty closely with housekeeping as well, right? Because they
Sure.
often discovered odd jobs. So, yeah, that's
Yeah.
it right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Nice.
Jay and Matt, and
Jay had
that's
just
the
fallen
hand,
in like a mud puddle. Or
and there's the basketball court, right? I love
Yep.
that court.
The one
This
you're
is the
talking
court
about.
you
Yep.
loved. This is it.
With a
Yeah.
giant. Is that a propane tank in the back?
That's what it looks like back there.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Keep the
Amazing.
field house warm in winter, maybe. But
That's right. Yep. Those are
This
things
truck-
I
This
took
is
for
really
granted.
cool.
Yeah.
yeah, that's the truck. I love that truck. So
Split windshield. I love it.
Yeah, but did the windshield wipers shoot sideways?
No,
And
it's
I
not
don't
as-
think it had that level of technology.
not
Yeah.
as cool as the Marine Jeep. Sorry.
Nope.
Yeah. Steve sent me a photo this past summer of where the Marine Jeep ended up. It was sad. I don't think I've shared it with you yet.
Oh, where did it end up?
Oh gosh.
Maybe we should have a memorial.
Yeah, I honestly think we should because I saw it and I'm like, wow, no, that should not have been its final destination. So you remember the picture I'm talking about, Steve, that you sent me?
Yeah.
I mean, it should have been taken out and dropped into the middle of the lake. That would be fitting.
A burial at sea.
Burial at sea.
It was a funny story, Tom, because I posted a picture of you and Mike.
Zano.
I saw
Mike Mazzano. Yeah,
I saw your
remember him.
comment too. Like we always wanted to have our shirts off or something, right?
For pictures. No. But if you look at the comments of that
Hilarious.
picture, somebody said, "Hey, I think I just saw that Jeep up near, I think was it Peck's grave or something."
Yeah.
The Peck's
They posted
grave.
a picture.
Wow.
You
I
to tie
remember
it all
Mike
together.
Mazzano. He was in that '86 preseason, right? And he was kind of
Oh yeah.
the chief boat boy that first summer, I think, too.
It was.
So,
I roomed with him down at the point that first year.
yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
he had the red car. I remember him driving around that red sports car that he
And
had.
the tomato. He had the little
The tomato.
truck. That's right. Wow. This is in regards to your ministry, like we opened up at the very beginning, you talking about that, and kind of what is your what's your niche, or what in ministry do you find that you lean into, that you feel led to share about the most, that you like to leave people with, if you only had a chance to share a few minutes with, what is it that you
Yeah,
do?
yeah, no, I think sort of in my teaching, what I'm sort of realizing more and more that sort of what the center of gravity that I'm always coming back to, and I'm finding myself just little by little expanding it more and more, is I just call them ancient religious theological ethics or whatnot. The ethics of the Bible, especially books like the Book of Proverbs, which I sort of understand to really be about virtue, right? What kind of being are humans, and how do we get to a thriving or happy or flourishing state as human beings, and just sort of introducing that to folks, and really thinking about the education of the students that we get here at TCU in sort of the one required class that they have to come through the religion department for. What are we going to do with that one shot that we get with them? And so for me, it's really coming down to this idea of moral education and religious theological ethics, the importance of virtue, right? And understanding what humans are and how we might flourish. and how we might encounter a good life, right? And how so often humans sort of we sort of misunderstand what the key to the good life is. We might think it's pleasure, we might think it's wealth, we might think it's status or power or something like that, which, you know, in sort of a particular way of thinking about those things, those things can, and you know, if they're moderated, they can contribute to the good life. But that's not the key to it, right? The key is are the virtues, right? In Proverbs, it's things like faithfulness, honesty, kindness to the poor, and things like that. And I always try and relate it, because I actually get a lot of athletes in my class. TCU has a big athletic program. I always try and relate it to sports, athletics, and music, right? The same sort of idea, right? In order to be an expert, a really accomplished football player, or basketball player, or tennis player, or an accomplished musician, right? You have to have certain kinds of virtues, right? You have to be committed to that. You have to be diligent. You have to listen to your coaches, right? You have to submit yourself to the wisdom of your trainers, right? And the same thing with the moral life, right? It's a way of it's analogous, right? If you have to use certain virtues to be excellent in sports or music, you have to have certain virtues to be an excellent human, right? To flourish and to be happy. So that's really more and more where the center of my gravity is moving, and I have some colleagues here that are sort of feeling the same way. So we're trying to figure out how to sort of make that a little bit more prominent here at TCU, right? So because you know, I mean, it's kind of almost trite these days, right? But there's kind of this crisis of happiness, crisis of flourishing or meaning, right? Both in the broader culture, but especially among college students, right? University students. I just read this crazy statistic about what percentage of college students are, taking medication to help with depression or anxiety and things like that. And, just sort of what we're thinking about here in the religion department is, well, maybe the ancient wisdom of different religious traditions, right? Not just Christianity, but Judaism and other religious traditions that are being taught here, right? Maybe there's kind of a commonality of religious ethics and sort of the key to, that can provide a kind of key to flourishing and happiness that folks are forgetting about, right? That we can sort of put back on their radar screen. So that's what's kind of energizing me these days.
Steve, were these the conversations you had in the field house cabin, or just a little more advanced?
So I find it really interesting.
It's really good.
You're go all professor on that. Sorry if I did. So
no, we asked for it. We loved it. That was really right spot on in terms of, like you said, center of gravity and what it is that you've learned that you want to share. That's good stuff.
I find it interesting. Your purpose in life then is to help others find their purpose in life.
Yeah, I think at this point, right? I think that's, not uncommon for, I hate to say it, but, like people our age, right? That's
Men of a certain age. Yeah.
That's developmentally, we sort of, how we find meaning now is to sort of, how others find meaning. I think that's not uncommon, so that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I like the other stuff too, my family I really see sort of my family as kind of the primary place where I live out my vocation, right? How can I be a virtuous person of Christian virtues in my family, right? And then in work and in my research and writing as well, that's where, it sort of gets generated. But all of those are it's all kind of mixed together for me. It's not overly differentiated at this point, so that makes any sense.
Sure. Makes a lot of sense. When you were talking about, I guess, moral virtue as a path to happiness, I'm going to have to think about that. I appreciate you bringing that up. I'll have to meditate on that a little bit. I've always more thought of it like a Micah 6:8 approach, which is he's shown you, right? Do justice, love mercy, walk humbly with your God. And I always think in obeying what he's asking us to do is where the happiness comes from. But I think also living virtuously also produces happiness. I'm gonna have to think on what you said, Tim. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, justice, mercy, walking.
Those are virtues.
Those are virtues. Yeah. I mean,
That's
I mean,
amazing.
it's expressed as a command, right?
Okay.
But yeah, that's part of it, right? So,
That's
but that's great that you brought that up, because I'm also sort of trying to think about sort of the relationship between like sort of the virtues of Proverbs and say like some of these other prophet texts, like Micah, like Amos. How are they related? And sort of one of my ideas is that, well, in part they, even though they're sort of expressing certain sorts of points of views, right? Sort of the moral foundation, the moral religious foundation that they have, seems to be very much related to the kind of moral religious vision that the Book of Proverbs puts forward, right? That almost like maybe they were trained in the Book of Proverbs, right? And then once they graduated from Proverbs class, right, then they have to use their practical wisdom to sort of express those virtues and live those virtues in all sorts of different contexts in life. So
amazing. I want to go to your class.
Yeah. No, that's I find a lot of meaning for me has been, we're kind of talking about what we've been doing over the past few years, and having the opportunity, with Tom, to have these conversations with people that I remember from camp, and what they were doing at camp was what they were being called to do in that atmosphere and environment, and making friends. But their actual jobs had nothing to do with what they would be doing later. But what they were learning, from each other.
For your dad.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. My father, my grandfather, and what they've become, and what we're learning just like every week, Tom, from their own life lessons. And even the other night with the call from the office with Steve, and it never occurred to me, they were thanking him for the ladies of the office for the way that Steve and Warner Strew would help to diffuse difficult kind of public relations errors, mistakes, or whatever, in a graceful way for them, so they could continue to do their jobs. I never thought of that, and yeah.
I'd say in some ways it's kind of a community of virtue, right? In terms of like,
Sure.
Sort of older folks, right? We're practicing and modeling the virtues for others, right? And especially the younger folks, we're learning virtue and learning about diligence, right? Yeah, you got to get up every morning. You got to go do that job at 3 a.m. and you got to do it well, right? You got to be honest in how you do it, and you have to be, kind in your engagement with others, even when sometimes you don't feel like it, right?
That's right.
Steve Hill already well-formed virtue in the virtues. By the time he gets there, he's working with the money, right? Because people know he's honest, right? So to my mind, there's a lot of that. It was almost a school of virtue, right? To like any community will be, right? A school of virtue to sort of say, hey, look at what Steve's doing. He's up there every day in the office, right? Being gracious, being honest, right? People see that and respect it, right? And follow it, right?
Hey, Steve, not to slight you at all, but Judas also took care of the money.
I have bad news, Tom. I have bad news. He
so
said
sorry.
that the other night that one of the departments whose money they had trouble reconciling was ours.
The boat crew?
Yeah.
I was always complaining about you guys.
And there were other people that were using the pump, and we were trying to catch up from the other camp vehicles, but I'm sorry we caused them headaches.
I know it's funny because I never had to deal with that. I mean, Warner always dealt with like the books like that, and he was just always be like, "It doesn't add up. These gallons don't add up. I don't get it." That's funny.
Had nothing
Strong
to do with
memory with
tubing.
the boat guys just popped in my head, sort of when sort of things didn't add up and sort of that interdepartmental stuff. One of my strongest memories about the boat boys and was like every once in a while, like people would be out on the lake and like this big storm would come up and they couldn't get in, right? And there's sort of like this kind of rescue operation where extra hands were needed, right? And I would be called. I remember being called for that for at least a couple of times, going out with you all to, be able to like help grab the
We'll
boat,
get somebody.
the
Yeah,
Some
sailboat, or
sailboat had
something
tipped
like that.
over.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Steve,
So I remember
I don't
that.
know, reading the stories in the book about the boat situation and taking people out there. Of course, I didn't grow up on water. I don't really know much about about boats and stuff. I'm always like amazed at the maturity you need to be able to handle that whole situation.
Yeah. No, thanks for remembering that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for thinking of us that way, Steve. I'm not so sure.
Well.
Yeah.
All right, guys, this has been fantastic. Tim, like I said, we have been looking forward to talking to you for 6 months, and it finally happened, and it lived up to everything I expected. This was fantastic. 36 years later to connect again.
Yeah, well,
Steve's a
thanks so
bonus.
much for thinking about me and bringing me. It's really, really, really fun, right? And really fun to reconnect with Steve. And I hope maybe offline get some other contact information with Steve Hill. I got yours, right, and I got Bruce's, and others. And where are your podcasts? Where are they hosted again?
So YouTube,
I think.
point
Okay, I think
well
I saw one
taken.
on YouTube.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
YouTube, point well taken.
You'll be
Okay.
the latest and
All
the
right, so I'm gonna
greatest.
go check out the ones with Bobby and the finance people or the office people.
That actually, yeah, I have that content that I'm going to put out in context of as the second book comes closer. But yeah, it's been, thank you, Steve, for doing that. And yeah, regarding the grand prank, we will have a offline conversation about that to put that story together too. So I don't know, Tom. I don't know if they're going to go to jail like we might have been, but it was
I feel like there's
impressive.
Yours had more planning for sure.
Yeah, no, way more planning. That's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Less law enforcement, more planning.
Well, that's usually how it goes with crime. Yeah. It'll be fantastic. We should tell these guys too, though, we're going to have a group call in a couple weeks for our season 2 finale. And I mean, we're going to try and get as many people on a Zoom call at once. We'll have like some quizzes. We'll have some fun things to do. Maybe a couple short interviews with people. So watch for some info about joining for that. We'd love to get you back on. And Steve, I think season 3 we need to have a full on interview with you, and we'll bring Tim in so he can listen to your story.
Well, I'm glad you guys are doing this. It's been fun listening to Nate and Earl and Jay and everybody, and
all right,
back memories. So I appreciate your bonus.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a lot of fun.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So.
All right, this couldn't have been more fun. So,
well, thank you all. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks for being here. See you guys.
Bye.